I'm Miss Lovelady, and I teach 3rd grade ELA at Sally Humble Elementary. And today we're going to continue our unit of the stories Julian tells. Today's lesson is Lesson 6, How Illustrations Affect the Meaning of the Text. All right, so we're going to jump right in with one of my favorite books today. All right, so from the book, The Fantastic Flying Books of Mr. Morris Lesmore, we learned about Morris Lesmore's experiences with books and how to determine word meanings from context. So you've already practiced using the words around you, using your context clues. Today, we're going to look closely at the images in the book, and that's going to help us better understand the book's meaning. So why do these images go with these words? They go hand in hand. You already know that as a reader, but we're going to jump right in. How does a story's illustrations help us understand the story better? So like I said, your illustrations always go with the text. They always match. And remember that your illustrations, those can be pictures, drawings, photographs, maps, charts, anything like that that accompanies the text. So let's look specifically at that. So your illustrations, we use images to help us understand who's there and what's happening. The text might be talking about a character. There might be a picture of the character. That makes sense. And the images also give clues about the story that the text doesn't include. So the text is the words. So it might kind of tell you, foreshadow, like what's going to happen, things that the text doesn't necessarily say. So as I read this story, I want you to pay close attention to the images as we read each section. How do the images help us understand the story? What's happening? So as I'm reading, I want you to really analyze the pictures and see how they go with it. What do you notice? All right, so this is the story. It's called The Fantastic Flying Books of Mr. Morris Lesmore, and it really is one of my favorite books. All right, let's get started. Morris Lesmore loved words. He loved stories. He loved books. His life was a book of his own writing, one orderly page after another. He would open it every morning and write of his joys and sorrows, of all that he knew and everything that he hoped for. But every story has its upsets. One day the sky darkened, the winds blew and blew, till everything Morris knew was scattered, even the words of his book. He didn't know what to do or which way to go, so he began to wonder and wonder. Then a happy bit of happenstance came his way. Rather than looking down, as had become his habit, Morris Lesmore looked up. Drifting through the sky above him, Morris saw a lovely lady. She was being pulled along by a festive squadron of flying books. Morris wondered if his book could fly, but it couldn't. It would only fall to the ground with a depressing thud. The flying lady knew Morris simply needed a good story, so she sent him her favorite. The book was an amiable fellow and urged Morris to follow him. The book led him to an extraordinary building where many books apparently nested. Morris slowly walked inside and discovered the most mysterious and inviting room he had ever seen. It was filled with the fluttering of countless pages, and Morris could hear the faint chatter of 1,000 different stories, as if each book was whispering an invitation to adventure. Then his new friend flew up to him and landed on his arm. It held itself open as if hoping to be read. The room rustled to life, and so Morris's life among the books began. Morris tried to keep the books in some sort of order, but they always mixed themselves up. The tragedies needed cheering up and would visit the comedies. The encyclopedias, weary with facts, would relax with the comic books and fictions. All in all, it was an agreeable jumble. Morris found great satisfaction in caring for the books, gently fixing those with fragile bindings and unfolding the dog-eared pages of others. Sometimes Morris would become lost in a book and scarcely emerge for days. Here we have a page that doesn't even have text with it. It's just illustration. Morris liked to share the books with others. Sometimes it was a favorite that everyone loved, and other times he found a lonely little volume whose tale was seldom told. Everyone's story matters, said Morris, and all the books agreed. At night, after all the stories that needed telling had been told, and everyone had settled down to their proper places on the shelves, the great big dictionary would get in the last word. It was then that Morris Lessmore would once again write in his own book. He wrote of his joys and sorrows, of all that he knew and everything that he hoped for. The days passed, so did the months. And then years and years. And Morris Lessmore became stooped and crinkly. But the books never changed. Their stories stayed the same. Now his old friends took care of him the way he had once cared for them, and they read themselves to him each night. Then one day he filled the last page of his book. He looked up and said with a bittersweet sigh, I guess it's time for me to move on. The books were sorry, but they understood. Morris put on his hat and took his cane. As he went to the door, he turned and smiled, then waved goodbye. I'll carry you all in here, he said, and he pointed to his heart. The books waved their pages, and Morris Lessmore flew away. And as he flew, he changed back to the way he'd been that long ago day when they'd all first met. The books were quiet for a while. Then they noticed that Morris Lessmore had left something behind. It's his book, said his oldest friend. Inside was Morris's story, all of his joys and sorrows, all that he knew, and everything that he hoped for. Then the books heard a small, expectant sound. There in the doorway was a little girl. She looked around with wonder. Then something fantastic happened. Morris Lessmore's book flew up to her and opened its pages. The girl began to read. And so our story ends as it began, with the opening of a book. That's the end of that story. Okay, so like I said, I hope you saw some really good illustrations. So the question we want to talk about, which images from the fantastic flying books of Mr. Morris Lessmore add most to your understanding of the story? So what images did you see as we were reading the story that really helped you understand what was going on? Think about that. See if you can pick 2 or 3 things that happened in the book and the images. Which ones did you like? Why do you think you liked them? Did it tell you what was going on? Did it tell you what was going to happen next? Did it tell you what already happened? Think about that and pick 2 or 3, just a second. Okay, I hope you thought of some good ones, and they might even match mine. I'm going to pick several illustrations from the story and kind of explain how the illustrations add to the meaning of the text right there. Okay, so here's one. This was kind of the beginning of the story. So it says, but every story has its upsets. One day the sky darkened, the winds blew and blew. So if you notice the color of this illustration, it's gray and it's dark. It looks, everything's just everywhere, a big jumbled mess. So it's gray and it really looks like a storm. You can use your prior knowledge. On the page before, it was very bright. Okay, so what did we notice? That it's dark. Immediately when you flip the page, you realize the mood has changed. It looks very different than the first page. Upsets, the sky darkened. You can see that it's dark. The wind blew and blew. You see how the author wrote the words? If you look at Morris's face right here, he's very distraught. He's flying through the air. I'd be distraught too. I'm not cool with that. And then he's reaching. Look at his body language. First of all, he's upside down. What is he reaching for here? His book. Okay, because the book is very important to him. He doesn't want it to fly away from him. So that illustration shows us what's happening. All right, the next one I picked is this part. It says, then a happy bit of happenstance came his way. Rather than looking down, as had become his habit, Morris Lessmore looked up. Drifting through the sky above him, Morris saw a lovely lady. She was being pulled along by a festive squadron of flying books. So how does this image add to your understanding of the text? What do you notice about the colors? What do you notice about their facial expressions, their body language, what they have or what they don't have? Well, I hope one of the main things you noticed was the color difference. This page is gray. This page is colorful. Now, we really associate gray with sad or negative or dull, and then we usually associate bright colors with happiness and joy and excitement. So you can see a very big contrast here. So he's gray, she's in color. If you look at his expression, he's very dull. He kind of looks confused because he's used to looking down, and now he's looking at a flying lady through the sky, and her facial expression is very content. She looks cool. The flying lady has lots of books, and Morris only has one, and we already discussed that books are very, very important to Morris. So for him to only have one, that probably makes him very sad. Versus this flying lady, she has a lot. Then his new friend flew up to him and landed on his arm. It held itself open as if hoping to be read. The room rustled to life, and so Morris's life among the books began. Okay, so here are illustrations. This is the first time that we see Morris in color. He's been gray the whole story, and now he's in color. And like I said, when we think of color, we think of bright and joyful and excited. And you can see his body language. Here he's reading. He kind of looks like he's dancing over here. Very different than when he was flying through the storm or looking up at the flying lady like, what's going on? So we're kind of seeing a transition with the words and the illustrations. Another one I wanted to point out, this is a big, big one for the story, so I hope you thought of this one actually. Morris liked to share the books with others. Sometimes it was a favorite that everyone loved, and other times he found a lonely little volume whose tale was seldom told. Everyone's story matters, said Morris, and all the books agree. All right, I want you to analyze this text before I go ahead and give it to you. What colors do you see? What expressions, body language? What do you see going on in this image? See if you can figure it out. Use what you know about Morris. Use what you know about the words to help you kind of figure out what's going on in this illustration. Good. I bet a lot of you got some good stuff. Look at the colors. These people waiting in line are gray. We said gray was kind of sad, dull. Morris and this little boy who's already gone through the line are colorful, excited, happiness, joy. So what's different about these people in line versus this little kid right here? Good, he has a book. So we already know that Morris, he's bright and colorful, loves reading, and it brings him happiness. So when he shares that happiness with the townspeople, like he did with this little boy, he becomes bright and colorful. And these people are waiting. So he's sharing something that he's loved. So he's spreading his joy. The books were sorry, but they understood. So this is when Morris decided it was time to go. The books were sorry, but they understood. Morris put on his hat and took his cane. As he went to the door, he turned and smiled and waved goodbye. I'll carry you all in here, he said, and pointed to his heart. All right, so right here, I want you to notice Morris's expression. Looks very content. Kind of sad, not super excited, but not really sad. He said, I'll carry you all in here. And look at the book's expression. He's very sad, but he understands what's happening. Sometimes there's hard things that happen in life, but we understand why they have to happen. So it's okay that he's leaving, even though it's sad. Then the books heard a small, expectant sound. There in the doorway was a little girl. She looked around with wonder. Then something fantastic happened. Morris Lesmore's book flew up to her and opened its pages. The girl began to read, and so our story ends as it began. Once again, let's check out the colors. If you can see right here, this little girl is gray, just like Morris was at the beginning of the story when he was sad. But everything else in the library is bright and colorful. Well, she's not quite in the library yet. So notice that. And then over here, while she's starting to read the book, she's bright and colorful. And then I did want to point out the front of this book is the same book that Morris had on the very first page. So this actually is his book that she's going to read. So I thought that was really cool. I didn't pick that out. One of my students did one year. So that's really cool. All right. So I hope you understood how the illustrations always add to the meaning of the text. So we're going to move on to a little grammar right now. And we are going to talk about the 4 kinds of sentences. So the first type of sentence that we have, well, I want you to repeat all of them with me. So I want you to say statement, question, command, and exclamation. All right, now we're going to go through each of these and kind of talk about what they are, and then we're going to identify some sentences from the Fantastic Flying books that we just read. Okay, so a statement sentence tells about something. So I like to do this one. You're just saying. You're just telling somebody something, okay? And it always ends with a period. Draw you a period in the air. Just good. Okay, some examples. I had a good time. We ate pizza for lunch. I'm a third grade teacher. You're just saying. You're just telling somebody something. All right, the next type of sentence is a question sentence, and it asks something. It ends with a question mark. Go ahead and draw you a squiggly question mark in the air. So your question sentence usually start with your question words. Repeat after me. Who, what, when, where, why. So usually if you start a sentence with those words, it's a question sentence. So you might say, what is the rabbit eating? When do we eat lunch? How are you? So those are question sentences. All right, a command. A command sentence tells somebody to do something. It's a request or a command. And it also ends in a period, just like the statement. So just one little period. So please feed the dog. Usually if it starts with please, that's a request. Eat all your vegetables. You are telling somebody to do something. Do your chores after lunch. You're telling somebody to do something. And the last one is an exclamation. An exclamation sentence shows strong feeling, and it always ends in an exclamation mark. Draw you an exclamation mark, a line, and a dot. Good. So this is when you're like excited about something, or you might yell something. So the dog ate my homework. He fell off the chair. I just won $100. We won the football game. So it's very exciting. So we're going to use our knowledge of the 4 types of sentences, and we are going to do a writing revolution strategy where we are going to identify the sentence types for each sentence that come from the content of the story that we just read. Okay, so here are options: statement, question, command, exclamation. So what I like to do is go over here and kind of put what punctuation we have. So I know a statement ends in a period. Okay. A question ends in, good, a question mark. A command is going to end in a period. And an exclamation sentence is going to end in, very good, an exclamation mark. All right. So let's look at this sentence. Morris loves to read and write. So the first thing I like to look at is the punctuation. I circle the punctuation. Morris loves to read and write. Okay, well I have an exclamation mark, which makes me think it's an exclamation sentence. And I mean, that is exciting. Morris loves to read and write. Love is a very strong word. So that is an exclamation. So that's what I'm gonna write. All right, number 2. What will the little girl do with a room full of books? So once again, I like to circle my punctuation. And this is a question mark. So it makes me think it's a question. Let me go and see if I see a question word. Our sentence starts with the word what. That's a question word. Who, what, when, where, why. So that is a question. So that's what we're going to write on the blank. Very good. I bet you're already really good at these. All right, number 3. Morris's town was destroyed by a great storm. So circle our punctuation. That is a period. So we know that this is either going to be a statement or a command. So a statement is just when you tell somebody something. A command is when you tell somebody to do something. So let's read it again. Morris's town was destroyed by a great storm. So I want you to think, is that a statement or is it a command? Go ahead and say your answer. Very good. That's a statement. We're just saying. We're just telling you what's going on. Very good. All right. Look at number 4. What happened to the flying lady? Our punctuation is a question mark. And we have a question word. So that is going to be a question sentence. Open that book and read. Our punctuation is a period, okay? That means it's a statement or it could be a command. So I want you to think about that. Look at our sentence. Open that book and read. Say out loud if you think it's a statement or a command. Good. That is a command. You're telling somebody to do something. Open that book and read. And our last one, number 6. The illustrations show people becoming happier after experiencing the joys of reading. So I'm going to circle my punctuation. It's a period, which means it can be what? A statement or a command. Very good. Well, let's read our sentence again. The illustrations show people becoming happier after experiencing the joys of reading. Well, that sentence didn't tell me to do anything, so it's not a command. It's simply a statement. Awesome job. So you're an expert at identifying sentence types now. Good job. All right, so in this lesson today, you learn Morris and the townspeople found happiness in reading books. You learn that a story's images can help us better understand the story. And you learn to identify sentence types. All right, see you guys later.